Today, we are going to study an act called Easement Act. It's a very old act. Obviously, it's an act which derives a lot from the earlier British Act. And how does it concern us as architects is something that we will look at, because we are not lawyers, so we will not go into a lot of legalities of the act. We will only look at those aspects of the act as architects we have to deal with. Okay, so let's quickly understand what is the Easement Act all about. It's an act which was passed in 1882, so it's a very old act. Okay, now the Easement Act deals with the right that is possessed by the owner or occupier of some land over some other land, the land which is not his own, but a land which is some other land. And this is a right which is essentially granted so that you can beneficially enjoy your own property. Or if you don't have that right, you may not be able to enjoy your property. Okay, it means that the right that the owner has is not only on his own land, but on an adjoining property or some other property. And what is this right all about? It is about the right to do or continue to do or prevent or continue to prevent something in connection with this adjoining land. Okay. And why is it necessary to allow you to do or continue to do or prevent or continue to prevent? This is necessary because otherwise you will not be able to enjoy your own land. Okay. Now, let us look at some of the terms that are used in the Easement Act. The land upon which the right exists, or the person who gets this right, he's called the dominant owner. The, the owner of the property or the occupier of the property which is enjoying this right, he's called the dominant owner. And the land which is getting this benefit is called the dominant heritage. Okay. And on the other hand, the land on which the liability exists is called as servient owner. And the land on which this liability exists is called servient heritage. And the owner of this servient heritage is called servient. Okay, so these are the four important terms: dominant owner, dominant heritage, servient owner, and servient heritage. Understand that this is some kind of privilege that the dominant owner or the dominant heritage has. And this is essential because if this is not given to them, they cannot enjoy their own land. Just to give you some example, suppose your plot is adjoining somebody else's plot, and the only access to your plot is through that somebody else's plot. Now, if you want to use your land, you will have to pass through that other person's land. And therefore, you become the dominant owner and your property becomes the dominant heritage in terms of this easement. And the person through whose plot you're going to use the right of way, he will become the servient owner and his property will become the servant heritage. And there are all kinds of rights which as architects we deal with on a day-to-day basis. For instance, the drainage, the right to discharge your surface water on somebody else's plot, or the right to get sunlight and ventilation from the plot which is next to yours. Now, these are some of the examples of the easement rights that you have. Now, in order to have easement, there are a certain number of things which have to exist. The first one is that there has to be a dominant heritage and a servient heritage, and these two have to exist separately, two separate properties. Okay. Secondly, there has to be a separate dominant owner and a separate servient owner. If there are two properties next to each other and you are the owner of both properties, then there can be no easement. So the first thing is that the dominant and servient heritages have to be separate. Then owners also have to be separate. Thirdly, the whole object of the easement is allowing the dominant owner to get some kind of express or benefits for the purpose of enjoying his own land. Okay. If this doesn't exist, if this concept of some express or implied benefit does not exist, then there will be no easement. Now, there can be two kinds of easements: the positive easement and the negative easement. Now, let's quickly understand what this means. Positive easement is you get the right to do or continue to do something. Okay. And in the negative easement, you will prevent the servient owner from doing something or continue to do something, or you continue to prevent him from doing something. So in the first case, in case of the positive easement, is the dominant owner who has the right to do or continue to do doing something, while as in the case of the negative easement, it is the servient owner who is prevented from doing something or prevented from continuing to do something. All right. There are other ways in which easements can be classified. Okay. And there are two ways in which we classify easements. First one is called continuous or discontinuous easement. Okay. Now let's try to understand this in simple words. A continuous easement is one where you are required, or rather you are not required to do anything to enjoy this easement. Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say that your windows are receiving light from the adjoining plot. Now you don't have to do anything extra to continue to get this easement right. So this is a continuous easement. Okay. On the other hand, I talked to you about you have to walk through somebody else's plot to come to your plot. This is called as a discontinuous easement because you're not continuously walk from the road to your house, from the road to your house from your neighbor's property. It is only when you do this act of passing through somebody else's plot of land, only then you're using that easement. So this is called a discontinuous easement. In other words, in a continuous easement, you do not have to do anything to enjoy this. While in case of discontinuous easement, some action on your part is required to use this easement or to enjoy this easement. So this is the first method by which you can classify easement. The other method is the apparent or non-apparent easement. Now let's understand what is apparent and what is non-apparent. Now the apparent easement is something which can be seen by some sign or by some effect. For instance, let's say that you are charging your water through your stormwater through the next person's property. Now, can it be seen that you are able to discharge this water? Yes, you can go and inspect. You can see whether the water is flowing from your plot onto the other fellow's plot. So this is an apparent easement where you can inspect, or somebody can inspect, or it is shown to you through some sign visibly that the easement exists. So this is an apparent easement. And what is the non-apparent easement? Once again, let's say that you have a plot of land somebody else and are continuing to get light from the neighbor's property. Now, let us say that if the neighbor starts constructing a big boundary wall, and by constructing that boundary wall, he's going to obstruct your light. Now, this right of yours to draw light from somebody else's property and therefore preventing him from constructing this wall beyond a certain height, that is a non-apparent easement where you are preventing him from doing something which is otherwise not existing, which is otherwise not seen. Okay, do you see that you are getting light from somebody's plot all the time? You don't. But once he starts building or obstructing your light, then it becomes visible. So this is a non-apparent easement. Having said this, let us now go and look at what is called as restrictive definition of an easement. Remember that easement is always some kind of a restriction put on somebody's rights. Okay. Now, here, just make it very clear that easements are on a property. They are not on a person. Okay. So let us say that I have a property next to you and I have a easement over the property. Tomorrow, even if you sell that property, easement will remain because it is on the property. Okay. There is a restriction put on the use of any property which is not your own. So in that sense, all rights of easement are restrictive in nature. Now, for instance, suppose as I gave you the example that I have the exclusive right to build whatever I want on my property. But if you have an easement over property, you will restrict that right of mine to build beyond a limit or to build not to build right up to the fence. Bylaws, we have to leave some space on all sides. Purpose is that should be drawing light from somebody else's property, or you should not be stopping somebody else's light and ventilation. Otherwise, what will happen in everybody builds from edge to edge, then where will the windows be? Okay. So this way, even though you have the exclusive right to build anything on your property, the easement right of somebody else may restrict you from using this right of yours to build whatever you want. Okay. Sometimes there are restrictions which stop the right arising out of a situation. For instance, suppose your plot is abutting a stream or a river. Okay. And you have the right to use water. You can actually draw water. Earlier, you must have seen in Hindi movies, they always show it. The village goes to the river and these women, they get water from there. Okay. Obviously, it doesn't happen anymore in India, but it is shown in Hindi movies. So that is one right that is arising of some situation. Now, this right can also be restricted through some sort of an easement. Okay. Then there is another concept called profitendre. That's a French word, obviously. It is spelled as profit, Prendre, but pronounced as profitendre. Now, what is this profitendre? It is again some kind of a right that you have to take fruits from somebody else's property, to take stones from somebody else's property, okay, or fish in the river. So these kinds of rights, they are called as profitendre, and even these can be restricted through the use of easement. Now, there can be certain limitations or conditions which can be put on easements. Now, what kind of limitations or conditions can be there? First of all, you can say that a easement right can be limited to a certain term, 20 years, 10 years, like that, or they could be permanent. There could be some kind of interruption in between. So there can be interrupted easements, or you can say that you can only this easement is accessible to the dominant owner only during day and not during night. That is also possible. Or there can be some kind of a condition that this easement is available to you only when during Diwali period, because that is the only time that I will let you come through my property. The servient owner can have those kinds of limitations on an easement. Okay. Now let's quickly look at how can these easements be imposed or acquired or transferred. Okay. The first foremost, you can, or any heritage which have some interest in the heritage, they can impose this liability. Okay. Example that, let's say I have a property and I have rented it out to Tanishq for a period of 20 years. It means Tanishq has the right as a property holder to, let's say, uh, get some kind of easement right over my property. Let's say he has to pay my property to this property that I have leased to him for 20 years. Now here he becomes the dominant owner. My property is the servient heritage. Now let us say that he wants, in this period of 20 years, sometime he wants to actually give away this property to somebody else for a period of 5 years. Then he already has the easement over my property to use this, right of way. He can pass that on to somebody else. He can impose that. Okay. Because he already has that with him. But he can't do it beyond 20 years because his right will end after 20 years. So anybody who has either the liability or the right or interest, both can transfer their easement to another person. Okay. Sometimes these easements, they are acquired by some sort of a deed. For instance, you buy land, so there is a sale deed. Now in the sale deed, you can say that I am selling my property to you, but the well in the property, it's a common well from earlier on. So I will have the easement, or let's say the plot, adjoining plot will have the easement of drawing water from that well. So even when I sell a property, I can say that there is one particular mango tree in this left side corner. I include it in the agreement that even though this land to you, but this mango tree in the corner, the fruits that it bears, XYZ will have, XYZ property will have the easement to take fruits from that particular tree. So this is a grant which is included either in the sale deed or in the mortgage deed or any other kind of transfer. Sometimes what happens is, the land belongs to somebody and after he dies, then the whole property is divided amongst the heirs. Suppose a person has 5 children. So the land that he has is divided into 5 parts. And even when this sort of a partition happens, there may be easements which may have to be given one person over another person's property, or rather one heritage over another heritage. How? Let's say that only you divide the plot into 5 parts, then the remaining 4 whose part of the land does not abut on the road, they will need to be given a passage. Or there are common properties, like I told you, the well. If there's only one well and all 5 people they want to do farming there, they will have the right, and it's an easy to draw water that well. Okay, so there are multiple ways in which you can acquire easements. Then these some of the easements, they are called as implied circumstantial easements, or easements that you get due to implied or circumstances. Okay, now what is this? Let's say I already told you that when you divide plot, in order to go to one is essential, circumstances make it essential that I be given an easement to walk through your land. So this is an easement of necessity. Okay. Then there are certain easements which are called as quasi easements. Now, what is quasi? Quasi is as if. We have learned about it earlier also, that quasi is a Latin word which means as if. So this as if clause, or these quasi easements, are those which are transferred when the property is transferred. Very simply. Okay. So it is also something which is arising out of circumstances. Then there are certain easements which are called as prescriptive easements. Now, prescriptive easements are those which are by way of an agreement, and they are enjoyed peacefully. Sometimes there are no agreements, but you are still using some easement. Now, when you are using some easement without any agreement for a continuous period, then it becomes a prescriptive easement. Just to give you an example, suppose, let's say, your neighbor has some place where you are dumping your okay, and if you continue to do it for a continuous period of 20 years without any interrupt, okay, then you get the easement right, which is prescriptive. So then you cannot be throwing your dirt in that particular place. So if you enjoy a right, even illegally, let's say, because there is no position, there is no agreement, but you still are using some right for a continuous period of 20 years, then it is called as prescriptive easement. You get it. If the land that you are enjoying some benefit out of belongs to the government, then it takes a complete uninterrupted period of 30 years to get prescriptive easements. The most simple example that we get is the slums. That if on a government land, if there are hutments for 30 years, you cannot remove them, because those hutment guys have now an easement right on that land. Okay, and what is that right? To build a shanty and live in it. All right. However, if that land is private, then after 20 years, the slum guy will get the right, easement right. If it is continuously for a period of 20 years, if in between, for even for one day, he is evicted, then he will not get the easement right. So prescriptive easements on private lands, continuous occupation 20 years. On government land, continuous uninterrupted occupation or use for 30 years. There are easements which are customary easements. Now, what is a customary easement? There are local, let's say that you cremate your dead at a certain place outside the village. The land may not belong to the village, it may belong to some person also, we don't know. But every time there is a death in the village, people take the body there and cremate it. Now, once that keeps on happening as a custom, then under section 18, it becomes a easement which is customary, then it cannot be stopped. Nobody can stop you from cremating the body there, because for generations people have been using that place for a certain purpose. Now, very importantly, when the dominant heritage is transferred by one party to another by way of law, or by way of some court degree, or by way of some deed, then what happens? That the easement on the dominant heritage passes on to the new owner. It doesn't get extinguished. The easement remains with the dominant owner. Okay. Now let's look at some of the instances or methods by which easements can be removed, or extinction or suspension of easements. And also, how do you revive easements which are either extinct or which are suspended? So let's look at these. This is given in section section 37 to section 47. All this is covered. Now, first of all, when the grantor have any right in the servient tenement because of some reason, then right of easement also will cease to exist. For example, let's say I have a piece of land, I give it to let's say you for 20 years, and in 1920, suppose I give it to you in, let's say, 2000, and in 2001, the person that I have given this land to, he imposes an easement in somebody else's favor. So as soon as the 20 years are over, then the earlier easement will also exist. So if the servient owner doesn't have the right, then the easement will also get over. Okay. Or there are certain conditions that you may put in the easement right, and if the condition itself stops to exist. So for instance, I will say that I have given you right of way from my property because you do not have access. Important. Huh? And suppose later on the municipal corporation makes a road which gives you access to your plot directly. In that case, some event has happened because of which no necessity for this event to continue. Then automatically event will be suspended, okay, or extinct. Or sometimes there can be an agreement where you can make a specific condition in the agreement that X had easement over property belonging to Y, and now between an agreement, these fellows, they have decided not to use that easement, or the easement is now, it ceases to exist. Okay. So this is called as something that is released. I'll give you an example. I have, let's say, I'm discharging my drainage through a pipe which goes through another property. And now what happens? That fellow says, no, 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 you don't do it. You build your own soak pit, and some monetary exchange happens, and all this is recorded by way of a deed, where they say, okay, I'm paying you 20,000 to do away with my easement, and the dominant owner will say, okay. They will sign that agreement, and from that day onwards, the easement of discharging my water into the other fellow's property will cease to exist. Or where termination becomes a necessity. For instance, once again, I have a piece of land, and you have the right of way through my property, but you buy some other land, and now you access that land. So you don't need to actually use the land to go to your own land. So the necessity is more existing. In that case, the easement will get cancelled. All right. Sometimes easements get useless. Okay. More needed due to some natural reason. even then the easement ceases to exist. Then sometimes there is a permanent change in the dominant heritage. This is normally something that doesn't happen. Say that I also have a house next to mine, and the right of way to my house is through your house. Not something that may happen in a village, but it can happen in, let's say, old city, where there is a wada. My wada is behind yours, and I have the access through your wada to come to my wada. But then, due to earthquake, my wada collapses. It is. Then what has happened is that the dominant heritage, which was my wada, is already collapsed. Already collapsed. So it doesn't need to, there's nobody living there. So there's no necessity for the right of way. In that case, even that particular easement ceases to exist. Or there are all kinds of heritage can get destructed. Okay, not necessarily that only dominant heritage, but sometimes even if the variant heritage gets destroyed due to some reason, then the easement will go away. Okay. Then there is another very interesting thing. You remember in the beginning we said that in order for an easement to exist, both properties need to have separate owners. Now suppose I have easement over another property and later on I buy that property. Let's say that once again I have a right of way over. If I buy your property, then I become the owner for both properties. That minute the easement will cease to exist, because now you are not two separate owners. Remember, we said two separate owners and two separate heritages. That is essential. Sometimes what happens is that easements can be suspended under certain circumstances. For instance, as I told you, I become owner of both property. So here the easement is called as suspended easement. It is not extinct, but it is suspended. We will learn why it is called suspended easement. Or even for a limited period, let's say for 20 years I buy the property. In that case, I become owner for both properties for 20 years. Again, for 20 years, this easement is suspended. Okay. And when will you have revival of easements? Easement which is suspended. If you restore the heritage in some way in 20 years period, or rebuild the heritage in 20 years period. That means, let's say that I buy your land, which was a servient heritage. Mine was the dominant heritage. And I sell that land after 10 years. Then what happens? Then the easement is revived. Okay, because 20 years have not passed. Within the period of 20 years, if I sell that servient heritage again to somebody else, then the easement will be revived. Okay. Or let's say that there is a partnership. Okay. And between the servient owner and the dominant owner, they enter into a partnership and then they unify the property. Properties are unified. Then the easement has already gone away. But let's say within a period of 20 years, their partnership breaks, and once two properties become separate heritages. In that case, once again, the easement which earlier existed will be revived. But remember, for the time limit, 20 years. Beyond 20 years, this 20 years is very important. See, one of the things that you must understand, that if there is a continuous enjoyment for 20 years, you can get easement. And even if you want to revive easement, it has to be done within 20 years. Now let's come to something completely different, and that is called licenses. Now, a license is something where a person grants right to another person. Remember, it is not heritage to heritage, but owner to owner or occupier to occupier. The most only license that we commonly use license that we come across is the leave and license. Now, you must have heard this word a lot of times. You see, because of the Rent Act, people did not like to give their apartments on rent, because if you give it on rent, then the Rent Act will apply and the tenant will never go away. So instead of renting out a property which can create some rights in the property, what people do, people enter into an agreement, and that is called, and they make a agreement which is called leave and license. Now the word leave here, okay, leave, L-E-A-V, it is permission. So when I say I have given you leave and license for 11 months to use apartment, what I'm saying is that I am allowing you to use my apartment. I have given you permission to use my apartment, and under these circumstances, and there it becomes a leave and license agreement. This is like granting something, granting a right to somebody under an agreement, and it is a right granted to a person, not right granted over a property, because if you grant a right over a property, it can become an easement. All right. Now, these licenses are always in respect of immovable property. I can't give you a license to, let's say, use my car. Only immovable property, you can have a license. It has to be a legalized document, you know. So it's, you can't say orally, I'll give you the permission to use my house. No. Okay. And it is said that it is a right in personam. That is the word that is used. In personam means for a person or against a person. Okay. Not against a property, not against a heritage. All right. And then there are several conditions where people can transfer. What are the limitations? I will not go into all that. But the important thing is that licenses have to be a document. It has to be over an immovable property. And there are conditions like who pays whom, etc., etc., etc. You can read all that up. I will quickly compare the licenses and easement. A license is a personal personal right which is attached to a property. I told you that it's between owners and not between properties. While as when it's an easement, it is right which is attached to the property itself. Okay. In one case, it is attached to the person. In case of license, in case of easement, it is attached to the property. Okay. Once again, you know, the legal term says the terms license is a right in persona, and in case of easements, it's a right in rem. M means the same thing. Okay. So a right or a license can be attached. That, let's say that somebody has taken loan from the bank. He is the recipient of a license. Now that bank cannot say that I will attach your license. But an easement which is attached to a property, easement which is annexed to the property, that can be attached. So a license is something which is attached to the person, and therefore if there is something against the person, it cannot. Let's say that taxes are not paid, municipal taxes are not paid. Municipal corporation cannot go and attach that property if it is licensed. But it can always go and attach that property if the owner has got let's say taken loan from the bank, because the easement is attached to the property. License is not attached to the property, it is attached to the person. Now license is revocable. That means the person who has given the license can also take it away, can take back the license. In case of easement, it is not very simple. Suppose you have a right of way through my property, I cannot tomorrow simply say, now I revoke that right. That is not possible unless there is an agreement. Okay. And in case of a license, it is only a permission which is given by the licensor to the licensee. Okay. However, an easement is an acquired right. An easement is not because of the permission of the surveyant owner. It is a right acquired due to circumstances I have earlier discussed. So these are the major differences between a license and a easement.